Hi everyone, this is Jose for On Tour, and two of the most important areas in the history of this country. The city of York, where Congress adopted the Articles of Confederation, and Gettysburg, where a divided America met on the battlefields in a climatic moment during the Civil War. So let's go on tour and visit the city of York and the battlegrounds of Gettysburg. It's raining. The White Rose City of York, Pennsylvania, one of the first pioneers of the nation and first to utter the words, the United States of America. York is a city that's been on the front lines of America's history, from the country's foundation to being a leader during the American Revolution. York has imprinted its insignia all over the story of Pennsylvania, a city that penned the words to kick off a nation.
Let's begin the journey by touring the streets of York. York's Market Street. It's one of their busiest streets where the Colonial Hotel invites tourists to experience the magic of the city's architecture. But this classic American city has modernized, bringing a youthful and colorful appeal to its streets. The bright colors liven up this cloudy day. The city has several recurring festivals throughout the year. Walking through this event and seeing the happy crowds adds a different dynamic to what we know of York. York once acted as one of the nation's capital, and in that brief moment, we got the Articles of Confederation and made Thanksgiving a national holiday. So walking these streets is like reliving history. From across the historic Capitol Theater is the thoughtful Tin Man, sitting at the corner of another busy intersection. Loran Jacobs' sculpture is a timekeeper, observing the city's past, present, and future. We find a mural of the Articles of Confederation, painted on a side of a building, commemorating the establishment of a young nation's new government. York is a city that created an identity outside of being the capital. York went on to become an industrial pioneer, similar to many of Pennsylvania's cities and towns. From a locomotive history to building the first road, first motor, and telegraph, York wrote its own entry to the historic biography of America. We follow the crowd to the Central Market, a market built in the 1800s, adding to the diverse architectural mixture of modern and classic York.
At York Central Market, there's definitely no shortage of things to eat.
The intrigue that is York, Pennsylvania, and history that seems to be in every corner. A statue of Horatio Gates is planted in front of these two buildings. The famous general who led the victory of Saratoga. I look over the historic marker to read up on the general and realize the two buildings are the Golden Plow Tavern and Horatio's house. the place where he stayed at after the Battle of Saratoga. On the same street, we can jump from historic to present-day York, where you see crowds supporting their local shops in an area that has tons of unique experiences, encapsulated in a variety of architectural styles, ranging from classical revival to Georgian and German colonial. A mixture found across Dutch country, from all the different European communities that have migrated to this area of Pennsylvania. I make a quick stop by the Heritage Trail before making my way to the museum.
York has a unique history, and to get to know more, it's only fitting that we visit the Agricultural and Industrial Museum.
The AIM Museum. It gives us a deeper look at the history of York, as we're greeted by the statue Workers of York. We feel the vibe of the triumphs and struggles the city has experienced. Through its doors are breathtaking collections, like York's history with barbell, showcasing Bob Hoffman's work, better known as the father of weightlifting. In this room, we have a giant frame of Ready Kilowatt, the famous cartoon used by power companies worldwide. And we head down to the lower level to explore York's reach to other cities. Like this life-size Conestoga wagon, the vehicles used to make the journey west. As I sit down to think while observing the tour map, I start reflecting on the challenges these pioneers went through to discover the lands of the West. Let me send an email.
We've come to know Pennsylvania as a keystone state, playing a centralized role in building up the nation. Industrial, political, agricultural, and religious innovations all occurred in the Commonwealth and expanded to the rest of the country. The Susquehanna is a recurring river that's responsible for a lot of those innovations. It flows through many of the cities and towns that we've toured, and crossing the river opens up the path to western Pennsylvania. And from this vantage point, I feel like we've hit the peak of the Susquehanna story for the state.
Through and through, we've come across the Susquehanna River and see how far the reaches of this river extend. From the very edges of northeast PA down to the southern border of Pennsylvania, it's one of the few that crosses multi-states and fills the width of the Commonwealth. From this high point, the river looks endless. And the Veterans Memorial Bridge is a pint-sized version from when we crossed it in Lancaster. Susquehanna is the river that created its own story in the history books.
The town of Gettysburg, an area that's most associated as being one of the battlegrounds of the Civil War, but also a crossroads to major cities like Philadelphia and Baltimore. Gettysburg has its own industrial history as being an artisan of furniture, where the area saw volumes of success during the early 20th century.
The small town of Gettysburg, where leaders called it one of the busiest intersections in America. I just walk around and explore, feeling Lincoln's presence wherever I turn. This is a landmark area to the story of the country, which reshaped ideals, gave us two political parties, freed our countrymen, and sewed the wounds of a broken nation. Just watching the traffic, it's non-stop movement from the tourists heading to the site of the battlefield.
So here we are in the area of Gettysburg, where one of the most important battles in the history of this country took place, and what they say was a turning point in the Civil War.
That's where Abraham Lincoln stood to deliver his Gettysburg address. You can hear the murmur of the crowd gathered before the speaker's platform. They're quieting now. He's coming forward. You can hear him now.
77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war.
The Gettysburg Address were the words that transform a country, and this field marks a sacrifice in which men of both sides, of all kinds, clash for different ideals. The biggest battle fought within our lands, and what remains are these monuments that simply echo the stories of suffering and tears of war. The Pennsylvania Monument, a beautiful granite structure commemorating all those that fought in the Civil War, the largest of the state monuments in Gettysburg. And the generals wrapping around the monument, standing by their president after putting an end to the battle.
Going up the Pennsylvania Monument. Oh, watch your step. We're almost there. And we're here. Oh, we made it. On top of the Pennsylvania Monument. How is this for a view? From here, you can see the whole battlefield. Yeah, it's enormous. It's worth the climb. York, Pennsylvania, an area that opened the gates to a broader America. It established settlements past the Susquehanna and cemented its industrial and political revolution with its stint as the nation's capital, a city that gave us a defining identity. And Gettysburg, world known as the battlegrounds of the Civil War, where the troubled Union fought one of its costliest inland battles. Gettysburg is a beacon to sow a division. This is Jose for On Tour. If you like what you've seen today, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and share. If you'd like to know more about the places I've been to, please see the links below. Until next time.